Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Welcome.
And we have another special guest this week, Dr. Richard Snow. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I'm just going to interject before we get going. In spite of the fact that he's wearing his Kansas City shirt, he's really a Patriots fan.
Okay. No, I'm a Patriots fan only if they're playing the Steelers or anybody else playing the Steelers.
Oh, I see.
ABS, anybody but the Steelers.
All right. We won't get into the discussion who's really the GOAT of all, the GOAT.
Yeah,
Listen,
exactly.
here we go. I was going to try to get a few things in before we went into football, but okay. It's all right. I was going to hold my nose for the interview with this Kansas City shirt on, but it's okay. I love you. So we always like to ask our guests, our first question is, how did you get into chiropractic, become a chiropractor? What's your story there?
Well, it's kind of not a direct path like a lot of people's, they were children of chiropractors or they had an experience. I did have an experience. I used to suffer with 5 to 7 headaches a week, including migraines, allergies, asthma, irritable bowel. When I went to the doctor and he was writing another prescription, I was like, well, what's wrong with me? And he didn't really give me an answer. He just was basically, shut up and take your meds. So I asked him once about there was a chiropractor across the hallway that practiced acupuncture. And I said, well, what about chiropractic? And he said, oh, don't ever go. They'll break or sprain your neck. They might even kill you. And I was like, oh, that sounds bad. So long story short, I ended up starting to go to a chiropractor, practice acupuncture. And my very first adjustment, my nose started running terribly for like 4 days straight. It was worse than normal. My wife, when she met me, she thought I was like the grandma because I always had Kleenex with me. That's how bad it was.
Did you put it up your sleeve?
Then on the 5th day, it was like the clouds parted, the sun came out, and everything was beautiful. And I was like, wait, I don't have a headache. My nose is
Doc,
clear.
just an aside, your wife's what a pure person of thought, because if I saw somebody with their nose like this and sniffling all the time, I wouldn't think grandma. I think there was another habit that was a problem.
I don't know. I think you're just separating the difference between East Coast and Midwest.
Yeah, just bless her.
Yeah,
so I mean, really.
So I went from being sick to being well. I didn't, growing up sick, I didn't know that I was sick. I thought it was normal to have green and yellow mucus, coming out because that's all I knew. So when I say roundabout way, the doctor that was the chiropractor that was the acupuncturist also, he was my first acupuncture teacher in 1997. So I was a massage therapist for 11 years. Then I saw an ad that you could, train in acupuncture. So I started taking that, and there was all these chiropractors there. And Dr. Richard Yenny here in Kansas City since passed. But so I started training in acupuncture prior. So I actually integrated, I would use microcurrent stimulus when I was doing massage, or I would use, acupressure. But I was treating protocols for acupuncture. And so I just, after a while, I was like, I can only help so many people in a day, which being a massage therapist, and that bothered me. So I thought, what's the next logical step? Well, I went back to chiropractic college, and I actually had a clinic where I employed 5 massage therapists, and I had a chiropractor in there. So I was a business person before, all this. So then I was like, I sold it, started Cleveland Chiropractic in 2000 and graduated in 2003. And here I am on this podcast.
Well, you have it all, because my wife and I always say that the triad of health is really chiropractic, acupuncture, and massage. And
Yeah.
I just have such a hard
You're the
time saying
trifecta
massage,
right there.
Dr. Mark. See how
No,
he
I was-
hesitated on that?
No, I was hesitating because I was going to stop and correct myself and say acupuncture
Oh.
instead of acupuncture. So what's the
Yep,
correct word?
that's all right.
I like I
Is it,
like your way better. I like your
is
way
it
better.
yin or yang, or is it yin and yang?
Well, from now on, I'm gonna call it acupuncture.
There you go. Well,
So, Dr. Snow, you had a real advantage because you had a lot of business acumen before you came out of chiropractic school. Would you say that that was an advantage for you for sure?
yeah, I had a little understanding. My undergraduate, I started actually first 3 years. I was going to be an accountant. I love numbers. I love crunching. I love forecasting, profit and loss statements. And but then I decided, well, when I decided to be a chiropractor, I was finishing up school. I just needed to finish, so I took business. But one of my for my undergraduate, I had to write a thesis, a 50-page thesis, and it was putting you had to write a business plan, and then the 50 pages was explaining why you were doing all the things you're doing. So that was a whole semester course. So when I was in our later tries and I had classmates saying, "Hey, I'm going to write a business plan this weekend," I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "You have no idea." And I said, "Well, do you know what a P&L is?" And they're like, "Huh?" I'm just gonna copy so and so's, business plan and put my name on it. I said, "So how are you gonna explain that when you go, ask for a loan? You need to understand these things." So, yes, in that sense, but I look back, I still have my original business plan that I wrote that thesis, and it was on a chiropractic office, and I'm like, "God, that I didn't know much where I thought, I knew some things, but
Yeah.
I really didn't know a lot." So
It gave you a nice
that's part of why.
foundation. Yeah, it gave you a good foundation to get going, and,
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
a lot of doctors out there probably already know this and some may not, but there are states that allow a chiropractor just by being a chiropractor to incorporate acupuncture into their practice.
Yes.
Not the way it is here in Massachusetts, it's actually a separate license here, but just in broad strokes, how do you feel the 2 sort of mesh? I mean, they obviously have to mesh in such a way that somebody believes that you can graduate from chiropractic school and be qualified to do acupuncture if you obviously are instructed properly, but you don't need a separate license to do it. So maybe give us the version on how you think the 2 intertwine and intermix well.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I used to teach, chiropractors to go through their, national board. So, I was an instructor with Dr. Yenny, for many years, and then when he passed, I took over, for a period of time. And so the one of the principles I taught is a subluxation can cause an imbalance in the flow of the acupuncture pathways, the meridians, and an imbalance in the, pathways can cause a subluxation. So they're intertwined, but they're separate systems, but they're interdependent on each other. And so I would always, when I would adjust, then I would treat those points to give the person a better chance of being balanced and healthy. That's the same thing even with massage. You're working those points directly or indirectly because our body has a natural energy called chi, and even when the chiropractor is scanning down the spine, they're stimulating those points with their body's natural chi. You're having that connection, that symbiotic connection with the patient. And so that's where I go in the office and make sure my mind is clear, my heart is ready, because I have to, whatever I'm thinking and doing, it's going to the patient because of that energetical connection.
Hmm. Well,
You
that's
know,
interesting. I like that where you connected it to the subluxation.
Oh yeah, everything goes back to the subluxation.
Everything does.
Unfortunately, I hear sometimes I'm down the street from Cleveland Chiropractic College, Kansas City, and occasionally I hear students saying that some instructors don't like to talk about subluxations or they don't exist. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's a
We've
foreign
been down that
concept.
road
So,
on more than one occasion. It's like, well, if nothing else, tell Medicare that, right? Because they use the word.
yeah.
good old Medicare.
Yeah.
So with acupuncture, is there a Eastern and a Western approach to acupuncture?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of different things. I've had teachers from Korea, Taiwan, China, America, different places, and Japan. And there's a little different philosophy with each one, but I really believe they all kind of come back to a same root. As far as where that root is, I don't know because it's over 5,000 years old. Depends on the text that you read. Some of the ancient texts say, 10,000 years old. Um, so it really just depends on it's the approach. My experience has been, say, like a Japanese approach. They like to use fewer needles, more refined needles. Chinese approach, that's where you see the pictures where they have a lot of needles everywhere.
Mhm.
That's
It's
more of
interesting.
a, typically a Chinese approach. Now, there's probably somebody listening to this say, "Well, that's not true," that's okay. That's just what I've observed. Because I was taught if you can get to the one cause, the one point that needs to be addressed, just like if you can find the major subluxation versus
Mhm.
adjusting the compensatory with that, then you get to it. So that's where they're really very similar on a philosophical level of find the one point, find what's not balanced, find what is not properly as far as acupuncture, the movement of the energy, what's causing the interference, just like the interference of the nervous system, remove that interference and everything starts working like it's supposed to.
Well, BJ used to say the only true subluxation is C1 and C2, and everything else is a compensation. So, at
Yep.
least in principle, that concept holds throughout chiropractic too. So, interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever had, and if you have, how have you handled someone who is looking for relief, let's say, or any reason, but they're scared of needles?
Ah, yeah. Another great you guys have great questions. Um, so that's where there's different approaches. There's 20 different ways to stimulate an acupuncture point. A needle is just one. Another
20.
one's finger. You can use ice. You can use heat sources. And another one that is commonly used is a microcurrent. Microcurrent is a low level current. It's not like a TENS. And one of the individuals that used to work many years ago in conjunction of research with Dr. Yini was a Dr. Norman Shealy. He was a medical doctor that practiced in Springfield, Missouri, but he's considered the father of electrical medicine. When I say electrical medicine, he invented a lot of the stimulators that they implant surgically. If someone was doing research, he was usually part of that. Well, he did research with Dr. Yeni and also Thomas Wing, which invented a microcurrent unit. He was a chiropractor that was previously a mechanical engineer, and
Hmm.
he didn't like needles, so he wanted to find a way you could stimulate these acupuncture points. So he found microcurrent in a fraction of a second would stimulate the acupuncture point the same as putting a needle in for 10 minutes. So when I show the patient, yeah, we're going to use these probes that have a Q-tip in the end of them. We're going to dip them in an alcohol and water solution for safety and sanitation so that they can get through your clothing. So and so that makes contact with the acupuncture point and it'll stimulate it in basically a second and do the same as putting needles in. So it's great for kids. It's great for people who have fear of needles. They get the treatment they need and then they can start to heal.
Here's where I go. All right, doctor. I showed up to your office for acupuncture. I'm afraid of needles, but I stepped in the door, and then you're not going to use a needle
Exactly. Isn't
after
that
all that
great?
bravery I've shown. How dare you?
Exactly. No, most people and it's nice because you can do a lot of different things with the microcurrent. Like I have 2 probes. So I can put one probe, say, on a pathway that has a series of points. And if you're listening, you don't know what a acupuncture pathway is or a meridian. There's a series of points that connect together. And think of a street where you have a series of stoplights. Okay, the stoplights are the acupuncture points. And
Hmm.
so if you have a wreck at one place, it slows down the traffic flow through that street. So when they remove the wreck, everything flows again. The same thing with the acupuncture point. It starts to affect the flow of the energy called chi. And so when using the true probe, sometimes you can go put one on one stoplight and another one on another stoplight, different points, and it'll help the traffic flow of energy to keep moving.
Well, that was excellent analogy. Wow.
Does does
Yeah.
that
Coming from
coincide?
teaching, I try to use them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Does that somehow coincide with with the reflexology points that like I'm familiar with? That the plantar of the feet, you're touching this, it's the liver or the
The
lungs, or
they're separate systems, but there are things like in the foot, the only acupuncture point at the bottom of the foot would be kidney 1, which is in the sole of the foot. So they're independent, just like the systems of acupuncture you see on the body, that's one system. There's things that are called microsystems. So reflexology would be its own system, but say there's choreo hand therapy, which is a microsystem, which is just acupuncture points on the hand. There's in the ear, auriculotherapy is very common, 200 different individual points on the ear. There's also a system in the nose, and there's also a system in the head of the penis. I kid you not, but I've never studied that. Though I
I'd like to show you a few
let's just be
pictures
clear.
of
There are
that.
no needles going in certain
Yeah,
places, and
yeah.
that is one of them. Okay,
So
so
I
we
do
do have
not
pictures of
care.
Mark under treatment with the Dr. Snow. Let's go ahead and go to those pictures right now.
Oh boy. Hey, I
yeah,
do have a question,
yeah,
and it has nothing to do with
Okay.
yes, okay,
okay.
yeah.
Just as sort of the lay perspective, you were talking about microcurrents and electrical stimulation and on acupuncture points. What about when someone incorporates just regular electrical stimulation as a therapeutic modality, like, unattended electrical stim, low volt, high volts, interferentials, things like that?
Yeah,
Does it
there's a
interfere?
frequency, in the body that like in the ear, the auriculotherapy, there's certain parts of the ear that like different, frequencies, like, 10 hertz is a real common thing. They can go higher or lower, but 10 hertz is really good. The ear likes 10 hertz for some reason. And so the lower frequencies, the acupuncture points like the lower frequencies, like the microcurrents. So if you put a stim pad on an acupuncture point, it would probably stimulate it in some form. But each point, I kind of explained, they're an eighth of an inch in diameter. So that's the tip of your personal finger. And they're less resistive to electrical current. So it's like pouring water into a funnel. If you pour too fast, the water will spread out. It'll spill over outside the funnel, but there's still water going in. So when I'm stimulating these acupuncture points and they say, "Oh, I feel a little pinchy, a little electrical sensation," I'm like, "That's what the points. It's like the water is pouring in too fast, but you're still getting water in." So these high frequencies, you're going to do some type of stimulus, but it's not going to be as effective as it's like a howitzer versus a nuclear bomb versus a sniper.
Again, a great analogy.
That's
We're
all
getting
healing,
the
right?
hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute. We're getting the point.
Okay.
Ooh, wow. There it is,
There you
folks.
go, there we
Oh,
go.
there it is. I waited this whole time,
Yeah.
20 minutes or
Oh
so
my
just
gosh.
to say that.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah.
You should've told me we could have, segued to that better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I knew it was I'd fit it in there, don't worry.
So are you a moxa or not a moxa guy?
Oh, moxa is great for, conditions of, say, lungs, any type of lung related. Like my first uh, big experience, when I say big experience with acupuncture, I used to get bronchitis and pneumonia all the time, bronchitis every year. That was when I was sick, and I
Mm.
would get hospitalized every once in a while with pneumonia. And so when I got treated, the first time after I was hospitalized with pneumonia, my left lung was the one that would always fill up three-fourths. It liked to go up three-fourths. So it'd take, 3, 4 months to recover after that to get my legs back. So I went, to Doctor Yini after getting out of the hospital. He put some needles in. He did some moxa for me, and within 2 weeks, I kid you not, I was running faster than I was before I got sick. I felt I could breathe better, things like that. So with moxa, it's just a way, if people don't know what it is, it's an herb. It's a Siberian mugwort,
Hmm.
and you burn it like incense, and the heat will stimulate the point, but also the breathing in the smoke will actually help to heal tissue in the body. And so, I've seen X-rays where a person had a huge tumor in their lungs, and this is one of the things they did. The lung was clear. Now, it could be magic, I don't know, coincidental, whatever. Don't wanna say that was a treatment for it, any kind of that, thing, but what I use it for myself or patients recovering from, say pneumonia, bronchitis, I can teach them to do, something at home to help themselves or, what to do. But yeah, moxa's wonderful. It just smells a little bit, not like exactly like marijuana, but kind of smells like marijuana. So you don't want to use that in your clinic because when I was learning, I came home from class and I showed my wife this and I say, "Here, let me." It kind of smells a little bit like this. Well, then all of a sudden we get a knock on the door. My neighbor was a police officer, and he
Oh,
goes, "Hey,
jeez.
what's going on over here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just learning this." So yeah,
Right.
How do you feel toward cupping then? So that's another
yeah, it's another form of
related.
stimulus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very effective, and there's all different ways to do it. They have the manual pump it with the little
Mhm.
hand pump, and then, I was taught even you just create a vacuum by, taking a cotton ball that's on fire and then sucking the air out and putting it on. But yeah, I mean, it's very effective. All these things, I've had patients say, well, doc, I'm not sure if I believe in this acupuncture and the quackery. And I'm like, "Well, great news is it's not a faith-based religion. It works on cats and dogs, and they don't know how to not believe it. So, good news is you don't have
Yeah,
to believe in it."
that's it. Yeah, and you're here, so let's give it a shot.
Exactly.
Right.
What would you say, like your percentage in your practice of chiropractic versus acupuncture, or are they just always symbiotic with your patients? Like,
Yeah, I do have some individuals that just come in for, like, either, I get referred from other chiropractors for acupuncture, and we co-treat. So, there's those individuals that, just come in for that. Um, but yeah, when someone comes in, say they just come in for chiropractic or they just come in for acupuncture, I'm like, we can just do one, but we're not getting everything that we can do to help you. And usually when I explain it, they're like, oh, okay, I understand it, whatever it takes to get me there. I try to let them know these are my tools, and the more tools I can have, the better
Mm.
results we can get that you're looking for. And so it's like 100% or
Mm.
yeah,
wow.
that they're getting, acupuncture, yes.
Just curious. So, what would happen? Or maybe this has happened. You get referred from a chiropractor refers this patient over to you for acupuncture, and the patient's like, "Well, if you're a chiropractor, why don't I just do both of them here?" How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, I won't do that 'cause, unless the doctor I'm like, "If you wanna come here, you need to talk to the doctor," but I'm like, "They're a great doctor. There's no reason why you continue going there. You're getting results here, correct? Yes, okay. You're coming here for that. So let's keep that relationship and keep, everything together because, I'm like, I'm not here to take their patient and you especially if they've been with that doctor for a long time, I'm like, "You're supposed to be there. It's just you needing this with along with that." And I have a lot of those patients, so yeah, it
Yeah.
works out great.
Yeah, see, here in Massachusetts, like I said, we it's a separate license to be an acupuncturist,
Mm.
and so chiropractors can't do it under their DC license, even if they were educated. They still have to sit the board, pass the test, and all of that. So, in Massachusetts, you would have to develop a relationship with an acupuncturist and a massage therapist, and anybody else outside of your scopes per se. The massage is within scope, but say acupuncture is outside our scope of practice. So each and every state is different. So I'm just using that as a caution to say, make sure that even though you might understand it, even know it, you have to make sure it's within the scope of practice of your state.
See, it's interesting you brought that up because when I first started chiropractic, if you had a chiropractic license, and you had the training, you could sit for the acupuncture national board, just take the test. And I was like, I don't want to do it. Well, then the next year they changed that, and I wish I had. But when they came up with the national board, and then ACA has a diplomate in that. I actually took both those tests in the same year because I was like, I'll just take them, get them out of the way. Because Kansas, was kind of grandfathered in. But I thought, I'd rather have those things and and not need them than to need them and be like, "Oh god, I have to take it." So, it's funny because it was a while after being in practice, and I started studying, I'm like, "Oh, I better study. I got tests." And I'm like, "My brain hurts." I had trauma from chiropractic. So I was like, "I'm just taking these cold turkey." So I took them both cold turkey and passed, and so I was like, "Okay." I was like, "I'll just see what I know." So that was good.
What's the education? What's involved in being an acupuncturist?
Yeah, for the national board, chiropractic examiners, it's 100 hours, under a, certified course, and then for the diplomate, it's 300 hours.
Mm.
And so, and then you have a test, and you have to also do a, hands-on part, let's see, didactic, correct? Is that
Mhm.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to
In
do a
person.
hands-on part, and I used to be a proctor for that test, and, um it's a very accurate, or very fair and, very challenging test, and so, I took that through the ACA, and it was good, and actually, at the time, um, there's a lot of when, Obamacare said, "Oh, you have to have acupuncture on there as a covered service," they were coming to the ACA's, diplomate board and saying, "What is your guys' credentials?" They were trying to get around. I think it was Aetna was the first one. They said, "Well, okay, we're going to cover it, but you have to have a diplomate." Because there was
Mm.
only, like, I was number 70 in the country to actually take the test. And so they thought, "Oh, well, there's only gonna be a few of you." So, yeah.
So, are you credentialed as an acupuncturist in your state's insurance panels?
No, I'm not.
What's interesting is here in Massachusetts, anyway, most of the carriers require the licensed acupuncturist to be an NCCAOM certificate holder as well.
Yeah, and that test that, I could have taken which I should have taken when I first started, but, yeah, I was like, "Ah, I don't wanna take a test." I just yeah, tried to
So
avoid it.
what advice, parting advice in a sense, would you give chiropractors out there that are either considering becoming an acupuncturist or incorporating acupuncture into their practice? What's your parting advice?
Well, the one thing, a lot of times we think, "Oh, we'll take education like, your online CEUs and get them out of the way," and a lot of times they think, "I'll just do that with this." It's a different that'd be like saying, "Let me take an adjusting course online." You really need to learn
Don't
there's
physical
more to
therapists
it
do
than
that?
just learning theory. You really need to learn and be there. Same thing with massage, you need to have that hands on right there with instruction. And it's like I wasn't even allowed to use a needle till we got later into almost through the first 100 hours. Not a weekend course, but first 100 hours. And because we had to show competency and there's different things that you have to do. So you need to go through the training. You need to be patient to treat patients because you can't undo. It's just like they had that thing last year in the NFL where I don't know if it was an athletic trainer or whatever, but the JJ Watt got a pneumothorax, from they weren't doing acupuncture, but they were using an acupuncture tool and they didn't have the training. And that is a thing that you can avoid because there's a certain depths that you're not supposed to go beyond, and yeah, that comes with training and proper things. So have a good quality training program, and just be patient to do it because it's a beautiful thing. Just like adjusting, you had people that would, hey, I'm going to adjust. I know I can do it, but if you learn properly, get the right training, things will come out better for you and the patient.
I think that pretty much says it, right? Develop your skills the right way.
Have you
Yes.
seen in this post-COVID world, have you seen the quality or change in your patient profile, comorbidities or patient history? Have you seen anything different in the last 5 or 6 years than you did previous to
Oh
the
God, yeah.
pandemic?
So 20 plus years, I've seen more things in this short period of time than I would have combined in all the others. And
Seems to be the pattern right now. Stuff coming out
yeah,
that never came out that often.
My official response is, who knows why it is? It could just be there.
Mhm. So what you're saying is sometimes needles can be for good?
Yeah. Well, I did help a lot of people get their scent, the things, the sense organs, taste, smell, those things back. That was nice. Chiropractic, um, you get that too. I'm not saying that's the only thing,
Right.
but it just gave me a little more power, to help their body get back on track. So, yeah.
Right. So, Doc, let me say, somebody wants to hear more of you, other than we have a few courses on online with us, but other than the few courses we have with you, somebody wants
See, I
to
was
hear more
thinking,
from you.
do they want to hear less of Mark or they want to hear more of
Yeah, I
Yeah.
yourself?
was gonna say, I'm like, well, join become a client of yours because God, it is helps you sleep at night when you're a part of Tools of Practice. Is worth every penny and more. Wait, no, I didn't say more. Charge me
So
more.
what? Okay,
I
Yeah.
let
said
me wait. I'm
every
making a note
penny.
right now. Yeah.
Uh, and but then you have those resources. I have a class on there. There's a couple or one other place I have you can find. Yeah, I have some practical uses for it and things like that.
It's okay. You can say. No,
Okay,
no, it's good.
DC Power Hours. He is
Yeah.
a good guy, and but it's funny because I've been getting a lot of people that I taught back in 2008, 9, things like that. They're like, "When are you gonna teach again?" I'm like, I'm not sure. It's a season. Everything's a season, but it's a lot. It takes a lot of energy, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, they can contact me if they'd like to. I'm more than happy to, help in any way. So, it, what should I give
We
my,
definitely will be doing that.
Yeah, you can
okay.
give out your information.
So,
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So my clinic name is Choice of Health. Choice of Health. I'm in Overland Park, Kansas, where the cows are. No. Yeah. Um,
the
my
Federation of
office number
Massage
is not.
Boards, right?
Yeah, exactly. 913 814 0022. Carrie will answer the phone and just let her know, and then we can connect personally. And I'll help anybody
After
that
that,
needs help or has
I can
questions.
personally say that's true. So,
Yeah.
after that moxa story, Doc, I thought your practice name was Ganja Acupuncture and Chiropractic.
Well, I do have dreads. I mean, if they could see, besides having
Yeah,
a face
I
for
know.
radio, I have these
Yeah.
dreads.
Yeah, exactly.
oh,
Too
My
funny.
head's
hey,
as
well,
shiny
thank
as
you.
can be.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, Doc, thank you so much for being here and sharing
Oh,
your
my
story.
pleasure.
It's been very we could
Thank
go
you.
on forever, but we do appreciate your time and your experience and thank you so much again we'll forgive the Kansas City shirt. I'll probably try to digitally cut that out, but
Haters gonna hate.
exactly. Well, thank you again for
Oh,
listening to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini, and
Dr. Richard Snow.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.